And we're live. Hi, wait. We need some music, man. What? Can you hear the music?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's we're gonna wait a couple of minutes for people to arrive.
I feel like we're all in a video game and our little characters are just like dancing because we're waiting.
Like on the Wii.
Yeah, like the Wii. We're all just chilling out.
It does sound like music of a video game, like a Wii video game. Right? Okay. Should we start? I think we should start. Hello. Welcome to... Hold on. We need music. Welcome to Late Night Design Show with myself, with Pablo Stanley and friends. Tonight's guest, we're going to be having fun with Melissa Smith. She's a researcher at Google and YouTube. Lex Roman, she's a product designer at InVision. Gabriel Valdivia, we're having Gabriel again. He's a designer at Jigsaw. And tonight's topic is going to be UX research. Can be fun, right? We're going to have Melissa and Lex tell us how fun it can be. And we're going to go with our guests. So I'm sharing the screen here, but I'm going to stop sharing so we can all see ourselves. There you go. Now we're here. Hi. Hello.
Hello.
How are we doing?
Good. How are you, Pablo?
I'm good. Hold on. Give me 1 second. What's up? We're good.
The pizza just arrived.
We were having some technical difficulties, apparently. So, hello. Thank you so much for being here. Melissa,
Thank you for
Lex,
having us.
Gabriel. We are, today, Gabriel and I, we're going to be pretty much just learning from you because I know you guys are really passionate about research, and we thought, why not? We should talk about that. And yeah, so Melissa, you are. I met you at a presentation. You were talking about specifically about research, and you made it super fun. You made everyone have a good time, like actually doing the card sorting, right? And you divided everyone in groups, and it was just pretty fun how everyone had a different perspective on a very simple task. Like you could see that different people had a different perspective on doing things, and Lex, you are really I always see you're a product designer, but I always see you very passionate about research, and so we thought, why not just talk about that and tell us all why are you so passionate? Why is that important, and why other people should be passionate just like you? So I don't know, like, should we start with that? Should we start why research?
Let's see you start. You go first.
Yeah, sure. So I think research is an important part of the design process because at the end of the day, you can sit in a room and you can think of ideas or think of like ways to design a product or ways people are going to use it. But you need to actually go out and see how people are going to use it. One of the most important, I think, tenets of design is that you are not the user necessarily. Yes, you probably might use your product, like if it fits into something that you might be using. Like for instance, at YouTube, a lot of us use YouTube, a lot of us are watching it, but there are also a lot of other people who are not exactly like us who are also using YouTube or using features that are more geared towards them or using them in specific ways, and actually being able to go out and do research to find out the different nuances and the spectrum of how a feature could be used, and then just trying to make sure that the different scenarios and different use cases are, being maximized and being represented and being able to have people use it the way they intend to use it is the best way to do it. And I think you actually just need to go out and do research and have a very deliberate way of finding out that answer or that question of how something is being used or what people's needs are, in a way that you can't just like stumble into it and hope that you figure it out by chance.
What about you, Lex? How do you apply research on InVision or on your personal work? I don't know.
Yeah. So to me, research, the goal of it is to validate your assumptions. So like Melissa said, you are not your user. You have this concept in your mind about who your user is, and you're probably wrong about it. So you have to find out. So it's all about validating your assumptions, whether you're doing that before you have a product idea, where you're just sort of like, I want to do something in this space, or once you have a prototype or a product idea, and like Melissa said, validating how someone's using it. Because if you've ever like seen someone use products that you use, you've noticed that they do things differently than you do.
Some people say, well, they're dumb for not using it the way that I use it. and they didn't find that thing that I designed. It's so obvious. What do you say to those people?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an architect here in LA, a pretty famous architect who I was speaking with once, who designed a library, and then years later had gone to visit the library, and he said they had ruined it. They had moved all the chairs. They had like put things in different places, and I was like, I didn't say this to him, but I thought, it's because you didn't understand user experience. It's because you didn't understand how they wanted to use the library. You built this like museum style library, but it's for using. You need to make it useful.
I'm curious, you both mentioned that research can be useful at the beginning of the product development process or at the end of a cycle to validate the assumptions. If you had to choose, where do you think research is most valuable? Is it to inform product ideas or to validate the ideas have been made already?
I think it's important throughout the entire process. It is supposed to be iterative. I think the term is research and design, right? And the whole point is that you're supposed to be doing research at the beginning to help inform design. But then also once you've designed something, you go back and do research to, like Lexi's saying, to validate and make sure that it's actually going on, hopefully make iterative improvements. It's supposed, I don't think there's a specific time that's more ideal. It's meant to be done the entire time continuously.
I agree, but I place the emphasis on the early stage work. I am much more interested in existing behaviors, existing scenarios that sort of generate design opportunities.
So sometimes like you were mentioning, you validate assumptions. So you start with an assumption, and where does that assumption come from? Where is it because we have some understanding, we have an intuition, we have this fast thinking, and then how valuable are those assumptions first? And because like you're fighting against that assumption, you're trying to see if that assumption is correct or incorrect. But should we just like start listening first without even an assumption? Like how is it? I feel sometimes this is the chicken of the egg or the egg. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, in general, in my work, it comes from a founder, an innovator, a product leader who has an idea of a direction that we want to go in. But yeah, I mean, I think listening is valuable. You'll notice that a lot of politicians do that, like listening sessions. You're always sort of starting with something there, though. Like things have already been in place and you're sort of hearing feedback on the existing solutions there. But I absolutely think listening sessions are valuable and can be generative.
And do you think, like you're saying, like someone that has a vision, for example, and that vision could be something very different from what people think. And so wouldn't that innovator, that person with a vision, like if they start listening to people, to what they say, wouldn't that vision be just like ruined probably? Because his thinking is so different and so out there probably that nobody's going to think like him or like her.
So I think. Oh, sorry.
Go, you go. No, we have some thoughts about this.
Yeah, we have thoughts. I think that I think there's a difference between stifling the innovation, and then also building the innovation with users in mind, right? So there's like a lot of you, so I have a psychology background, so there's a lot of like just basic cognitive psychology principles of just like, you know, how much working memory does a person have in their mind, and how much can they keep track of, and multitasking, all these different things that are just basic psychology foundations that are impacting the way in the products that we use on a daily basis. So yes, someone can innovate something that's brand new and that's never been used before, but at the end of the day, you're still going to be working, or it's still going to be used by humans who we have this very strong understanding of, or like, you know, continuously trying to get an understanding of how they interact and how their brain's working. And all those people are still going to be the same no matter what the innovation is. So yeah, you can innovate, and there's no one stopping you from innovating and doing something that's never been done before. But humans are humans, and are, as in, like, you know, their brains are their brains, and they're still going to have the same complications and issues and limitations that they've always had for other products. And you can learn from that and build that in, and actually make your product more successful by having done that research ahead of time.
Yeah, I think it's all about de-risking your idea. So getting out there early, finding your customer or your user, and understanding how this fits into their lives. And I would say, like, I used to work in at a lean startup consultancy, where we would teach people how to, you know, do lean startup and be the next Mark Zuckerberg. And a lot of times people are very attached to their ideas. And the thing that I would say is that if you strongly believe in your idea, you chase it into the ground. So if you talk to 5 people and those people don't like it and you give up, you didn't believe in that idea strongly enough, right? You have to find new people. Maybe that's not your target market. Maybe you're not asking the right questions. Maybe there's a subtle tweak on your idea that would really make it sing.
What do you think, Gabriel? I think you have also some thoughts.
Well, I think that is really interesting. You phrase it that way, because there's the myth of, you know, Steve Jobs, or someone that has really visionary and can go against all odds and break through the market, right? And there's also this idea of timing, and whether you might have a good idea, but it's about finding the right timing or the right packaging for that idea. So I'm curious, how can research create kind of like a microcosm of the broader environment? You mentioned like bringing an idea to 5 people, right? And I imagine somebody that's really quote unquote visionary might say, well, they were just the wrong 5 people. You know, how do I find the right set of 5 users that represent what you know, the market that I'm trying to pursue, especially for really ambitious companies that are, you know, the target audience is like everyone. So how do you find those 5 people that are like, you know, the deciders of whether an idea is good or not?
Yeah, no one's target audience is really everyone.
But it's also most companies that I've worked for, they're like, what's your target audience? Like, the world.
They say that. Yeah. You have to root it in behaviors, right? You have to root it in their behaviors. So what is the behavior? For example, Steve Jobs is famously the person that everyone talks about. Well, Steve Jobs didn't do it. I don't need to do research because he didn't do it. But I don't think you could argue that it wouldn't have benefited his process in any way, right? Like, for example, if they had gotten earlier prototypes of the iPhone out, maybe they would find out that people drop them all the time and smash the screen. Like, I think it could really have benefited that process. But going back to your question about the target market, you root it in behavior. So you try to identify what are the behaviors of people who want the iPhone, for example. And if you're wrong about that persona, then you redo it and you try to reimagine it. You think, okay, well, what's a different set of behaviors that are people that might want this?
And to just like piggyback off that, you still can learn a lot from those 5 people who you've spoken to and don't like your product, because you just obviously those are 5 people, but they still are representative of, if your target market is everyone, they are still part of everyone. So what is it that they don't like? Is it that it's not meeting a need that they have, or is it that it's not quite what they expected? Or, I mean, you can still learn a lot from talking to those 5 people who end up don't liking your product, and that can actually let you go back to the drawing board and make it even more appealing to a broader audience, theoretically.
So do you ever go to a test or something and they like everything? There was nothing that they didn't like? There was just like, we
Pablo,
love it.
that's happened to you.
No, I'm asking
Uh,
if that has ever happened, and will you be wary of that?
It's definitely, there's definitely this like concept of like them just wanting to please the researcher, because obviously you're like talking as a human to them and they don't want to be like, this sucks, I hate it. Like people tend to be pretty nice, especially when you're paying them, right? But I think your job as like a researcher is to be able to tease apart like those like extended pauses or the before they answer something, and just, you know, it's probing and just trying to get at like, you know, you're not just taking the first answer they give, you're probably taking like the third answer once you've rephrased the question a few times, to kind of get at what they really want. And it's more about not just saying like, I like this, it's more of getting the point of, I wonder why, what about this, or why is it this way? You know, like the more subtle like feedback, like that's the more important takeaways than just saying like them sitting there being like, this is great, I like it, I would use it tomorrow, because that actually doesn't ever represent what they would actually do.
Yeah. Okay. So you got to go deeper. If they liked it, okay, what did you like? What was it? What can be improved? And probably then they're like, actually, then they start saying the truth, right? Or I don't know.
Exactly.
Yes, they do. I did a like a prototype fake test for before Apple did this thing where you can scan your credit card and it reads the numbers. I did a test for that off of a driver's license for a product I was doing, and I had talked to like 10 people, and I showed them the prototype. It was like a front end prototype that had no back end, and they're like, "Wow, this is so cool! I can scan my license. It's just like Uber." And then I was like, "Okay, great. Get out your license. Let's try it out." And none of them would do it. And it was like, okay, great. No one's going to use that. So they said they liked it, but I just kept pushing on it. And it was like, oh, actually, who are you and why would I do this?
But is it because you were there and because they didn't want to share with you present, and or why?
It could have been, but if I remember correctly, it was like just concerns about security and what's going to happen to that information. And
got it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there were some trust issues there.
Yeah. But to Melissa's point, you're always trying to just really you're not like checking off the boxes of your script. You're really just trying to get what's really going on. And if you get one good thing out of each interview, you'll be in a better place than when you started.
It sounds like you have to do a lot of mind reading, and you gotta be a pretty perceptive of what they're really trying to say and what their real behavior is going to probably be. And so, how do you like? Are there any techniques? Like, are you like FBI investigators, just like trying to get the truth out of them? Are there
Like
any?
if they look to the right, they're lying.
Yeah, exactly. if we start like doing this, you're lying. Are there any cues for you to say like, oh, there's something else in your mind?
I think
Melissa, you're the psychologist. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like kind of like I mentioned, just like you always want to rephrase your question or have them explain to you their process. I think like for instance, one way is like to gain to find out if someone understands something is to like have them teach it to someone else or have them explain it to someone else, not to me because I'm the researcher, and if they're trying to explain it to me, it sometimes feels like I'm testing them, which is not what you want. You want to find out how they actually feel. So sometimes like I mentioned in that workshop where I met you, Pablo, where you can have them bring a friend and then have the friends explain to each other how something works. And it's really interesting. I love using that technique because you find out what they think is important, because they're not going to tell all the superfluous like padding stuff. They're not going to tell that to someone else. They're going to just be like, this is what it is. This is why it's important. And for you as a researcher, you'll find out immediately, like, do they understand what this is? Do they understand what it's useful for? And I think that's just one way of getting, understanding of how do they think about this thing that they just used, like initial impressions and stuff. So one is, always finding ways to get them to explain what they know without making them feel like they're being tested. And the other way is, just kind of like, sometimes it is a little bit like FBI. You have to like kind of observe their behaviors. Like, are they leaning back? Are they crossing their arms? Are they more like, do they seem more uncomfortable all of a sudden? Like now that you're showing them something that, scans their license or whatever. Or do they, are they leaning in? Are they like, do they get it? Like, do they feel like, oh yes, I got it. This is cool. Like why are you asking these questions? I got it. Like sometimes people just are so almost annoyed that you're asking them questions because they're like, I get it. They're so quick on the uptake. But that's still feedback, you know, like that's something like, yes, the user education is working, the layout makes sense. All of these things are takeaways that are important to like be able to share out.
Lex, how do you avoid getting the result that you want? Like, I feel like you could go in a room and ask some questions, but you like sometimes you already have an answer in your head and you want like you could be leading the answers towards that place. Like, how can you avoid being biased towards a result?
Yeah, I think one way is to include other people in the research, like other team members in the research, so that they're sort of questioning your behaviors. One of my colleagues at InVision will do research together, and then afterwards we'll sort of reflect on what we could have done better. So I think that's one way.
Yeah.
And another is to be to ask what, how, where, why questions. I don't know what those are called, but ask those sort of more open-ended questions. So you sort of get more complex answers than yes, no, I would use this. Yes, yes, I would. I would tell my friend about it, and I love it, and I'm leaving now.
What do you give people when you're doing tests? You give them like an Amazon card or like a Starbucks card or something? Swag?
Sometimes it depends. It depends if they like your product enough. Sometimes they'll give you free feedback.
Oh, that's great.
Which is great. Yeah. But yeah, I'll do Amazon easily.
So wouldn't also the feedback be a little bit biased also because they number one because they're getting paid, and or like you're saying, they already love your product, so they already have something on their mind. So how do you like get all of that noise out of the way?
I think it's hard. I mean, I do think it's hard. I do, when I advertise for research, I try to not advertise that I'm paying for it, especially if it's an existing company. But especially if you do cancellation interviews, you have to pay them because they don't have any incentive to help you out. They've canceled their account on your platform. So you offer them money, and then you know you're getting real stuff because they canceled. You're paying them to tell you why they canceled. So that's pretty honest stuff. Other than that, I think you have to just really dig in on the questions and try to make sure they're not just trying to give you people-pleasing answers.
Have you tried charging them?
Charging them money?
Yeah. They should be
Yes.
paying you. Like
for pre-product stuff I have, yeah. So if you're pre-product and you're trying to validate a startup idea, absolutely. Yes, would you like to pre-order this product? Yeah, for sure. That's a great technique.
So it sounds like we're talking about qualitative feedback mostly, or qualitative research. I'm curious what your thoughts are from like qualitative versus quantitative, and how to lean between one and the other. Because in my experience, quantitative is usually the easiest one to use as leverage for design decisions, whereas qualitative is oftentimes ignored in broader product teams. So I'm curious how you guys balance one versus the other.
I think they go hand in hand. The way that I always like summarize it in a quick, snippet is that the quantitative tells you what's happening, and then the qualitative will tell you why. So for instance, you could like look at, logs data or something, or send out broad surveys and get like a large amount of numbers for like, what do people say they will do, or what are they doing if you're looking at like logs data or something for when they're interacting with this feature or this aspect or something. And you can get like a what, you can answer the question like what's happening for something that already exists. I think that's a little bit harder for something that doesn't exist yet. But that doesn't tell you why. And I think that's why you would need the qualitative side to be able to actually talk to people. Okay, like, hey, we know, let's say you're doing this and we know you actually did it because we like have logs data or something. Like, what's going on? Like, what are your thoughts about this? Or like, why is this happening essentially? And then they can help inform each other. So I definitely think they go hand in hand. And I think depending on the question, you might lean one way or the other more, but I think they definitely are important together.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of quantitative. Like, I'm a big fan of measuring quantitatively and of doing things like A/B testing and feature faking at scale. But I don't do a lot of quantitative research. And that's mainly because of the researchers that I followed when I was first getting into UX, who were not fans of surveys or focus groups or things like that. So I've just been really, I guess I've just never really gravitated towards that. Erica Hall recently put out like or maybe like just resurfaced a blog post and a booklet that she wrote about why she hates surveys. And I recommend that people check that out and see what they think about it, because there's mixed feelings out there about it.
What were the main takeaways of her hate towards surveys?
Yeah, one of it is like you're basically asking questions that you know, so you're not surfacing things that you may not know, so you don't get sort of the open-ended qualitative feedback. And she also thinks it's really easy to get them wrong, which I would agree with. It's much harder to get a conversation wrong, I think.
And how do you like? I think it could be really easy to just misinterpretar. I don't know how you say it in Spanish. Please help me with
in English. Misinterpret. Yeah.
Whenever there's a word in Spanish and English that sound really pretty similar, my brain just like I have brain farts. But anyway, misinterpret data. Like, how do you avoid that? Or how do you interpret? Like it's almost like an art, just like seeing numbers and saying like, oh yeah, the user thinks this way. Like, or
do you mean
know,
quantitative data, like product analytics, quantitative data, or you mean like surveys?
No, I'm seeing I'm saying like doing A/B testing or doing. Like just seeing numbers that, hey, we made a change and suddenly I don't know, we didn't get the results that we wanted, or I don't know, like something changed and we're seeing it in numbers. I don't know.
What do you do? Yeah, what do you do? So I mean, you have basically drop-off points, right, in your data. So you'll know like they did this, but then they didn't do that. And with most of the tools now, you can see the user IDs of all the people that didn't do the thing you wanted them to do. And you can reach out to them for interviews. Like Melissa said, you can give context to that data.
That's really creepy.
You can also look at user paths. So with a lot of analytics tools, you can click into those people and find out that they actually went somewhere else. They didn't totally leave. They maybe went back another way and then sort of dropped out of the funnel that way, but actually achieved a different goal altogether. You can learn things from that. But I definitely recommend pairing those confusion, oh, everyone's leaving at this really important point, we really want them to buy this thing, no one's buying it, with the, well, let's just talk to them and see what happened. Maybe they hit an error and they physically couldn't get through. Maybe they were confused about something. Yeah. Maybe it wasn't what they wanted at all.
I guess just to clarify quickly, like I feel like quant data is good at scale. Like you need a lot of users doing something or doing like some type of behavior to be able to see the patterns of it. So it's not like you're sitting there being like, Pablo didn't do this thing, let's go talk to Pablo. No, you're sitting there and you're being like, wow, there's a good percentage of users who didn't do this thing. Maybe we should figure out what's going on. So yeah, I just wanted to clarify, like it's not meant to be like a creepy thing. Like it's definitely like, I think the beauty, but also the downside of quant data is you need to have you have to have a significant quantity of it to make it useful. Because at the smaller scale, you might as well just be doing a survey or talking to people individually.
Now, this brings a question like, how could this data be used in the wrong way? Like, how could someone see this data and I don't know, use it for evil purposes?
Yes, I've actually had that happen before. So I worked with a client many years ago, a startup client, and we had done early stage customer development work where we had videoed people talking about their finances, their personal finances, really intense situations. And they later repurposed it as a marketing video, which I found completely appalling and just like against everything I stand for. So that is one thing. I make sure that now I'm on the same page with everyone. I write a disclaimer at the top of every research doc that's like, you do not share this. This is not a marketing thing. This is just for user understanding and product. So I think that's really critical.
So that I think brings an interesting point, which I'm curious, like, how do you translate the data and the information that you get from research to the rest of the team so that it can eventually become a design decision or, influence the product in a certain way? Is it through a series of documents or some sort of online portal or a presentation? Like, how do you do that communication to the rest of the team?
Melissa.
Yeah. So I think it depends on the team, to be honest. So it also depends on what stage the product is in. If it's something that is pretty early stages and it's like very rapid turnaround, very iterative, like feedback, like everything's going very quickly, I will almost always try to loop my designers into the research. I'll loop my designers in, I'll loop the engineers in, I'll loop the product managers in, have them sit there, observe the findings, observe the research, because then afterwards when I come in and I'm like, here are my biggest 5 takeaways, one, they typically already got them, but it also starts a conversation and it makes that whole design research iteration go that much quicker. And it also keeps them interested and invested in the research. It's not like I'm sitting off in a corner getting ignored while they're like toiling away doing whatever they want. Like it helps to get everyone involved. That's for like, I try to do this as much as I can no matter what stage, but for early stages, I think that's especially important. For later on, where things like where it's more like, oh, like something is already like launched or now we're iterating and it's just more of like a follow-up or something. I'll share things out using like presentations, using docs, slides. I'll try to import clips of people, like if there's like a common theme or patterns and the users said it succinctly, I will always just try to do like highlight clips and just be like, here's the users themselves saying what the problem is. Just because I think that's way more compelling than me just standing there and just being like, this is an issue. Like, I think when they hear it from numerous users, numerous times, being like, hey, yeah, I just don't get this thing, or where is this feature? Like, you should make this a feature, even though the feature already exists and they just don't know it. I think that's really compelling for designers to hear, because they're like, wow, okay, clearly that design isn't the way.
That's my favorite. When that happens, it's so good. It's just like, okay, I wish you could do this. It's like, actually, kind of right here.
Yeah, no, I love it. So I find that very compelling. But yeah, I definitely think it's like a mix of trying to get the users to tell it themselves as much as they can. And then just finding the patterns and making it very easy for people to digest. Because yeah, they don't want to hear all the psychology of it necessarily, even though, I could go into it, but they just want to know, like, what are the biggest takeaways and how can we take that back to the drawing board?
Okay, so we're going to pause a little bit. We're going to go into the news. This is like in the middle of the show, we're going to like debrief a little bit, just like a pause and what has been happening this week. So I'm going to let me share my screen right here because I have a keynote presentation with the news and stuff. Okay, I'm telling you guys, I'm so.
I hope it's only uplifting news.
Some of them are sad. Okay, some of them are not that great. Actually, the first one of them is actually from Toys R Us. After 7 years in business, Toys R Us just shut down in June. And before announcing its goodbye, they enlisted the branding firm Lippincott to address the problem with a new identity for the store. The work was never used, but they still shared what they could have had. Let me turn down the volume a little bit. I'm not sure that the campaign would have been helped too much the company, because the competitors like Amazon, Walmart, and Target, they were just crushing it. But it's fun to see.
It's beautiful.
Okay, next thing. I don't know if you were aware of this, but there's going to be a new. Apparently, early on Thursday, Vice President Pence confirmed that the administration is creating a 6th branch of the military. Pence argued that the nation needs to assert dominance over space, which led some people to believe that we might have a Sith overlord in the government. For all of you who hated the prequels, now you can see that George Lucas was a genius, a stable genius after all. Okay, you might be wondering, so what does that have to do with design? Well, on Thursday, they sent out an email to their supporters asking them to vote on 6 different logos for the potential new branch of the U.S. military. This is one of the proposals. As you can see, they got a bit of an inspiration from another logo. You can see that there's some inspiration there. And
someone got
also,
paid a lot of money to do that too, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I wonder if, I don't know, like if the people doing this, whatever agency, I don't know, different designers, were they just trolling Pence? I don't know. Or is Pence trolling us? Like, this is like so weird. So this is another one of the proposals. As you can see, the one on the left was made by Pence's nephew using PowerPoint. It was no, but seriously, I don't know what's
Oh
going
my
on.
God.
There's another one. This one looks. So something else that some people were pointing out is that apparently the shuttles that are pictured here, those have been discontinued for a while. So
Yep.
this doesn't even make sense. Like a shuttle, well, whatever rocket we're going to be sending is not going to be having wings like that. But
We should
they
really
look
just
cute.
repurpose the Space Jam logo.
Yes.
What's the space? I can't even remember what that looks like right now.
Look at that. Look, that one on the left. It has to be someone trolling. Come on.
I think so.
Okay. I also want to share 100 Days of Motion Design. This is by Tintin Shu. Over the past few months, Tintin challenged herself to create vector-based 2D animations over 100 days. And she shared on a post on Medium all her process and what she learned, and also the tools that she used. And she shares some of her reflections. And as you can see, the animations are beautiful. Uh, uh, each animation is a bit more complex. You can see her progress because she, like, the first animations, they look cute, but then the other ones like look amazing. It's just like the ones that are on like day 60, day 65, they start looking really good. And it's great to see a designer growing and sharing how she got there. Her discipline is all inspiring. So thank you for Team for sharing that. And now on the sadder news that I was telling you, a sad story. A disillusioned designer. So this was on Designer News. Someone on Designer News just shared a sad story. Sharif, UX consultant, according to his profile, wrote that after 10 years of being a UX designer, he said, "I'm ready to throw in the towel. I'm tired of asking, begging, coaxing my peers and managers and others to do just a little user research and getting up empty promises in return." And apparently the kicker was a product that they were launching and that was ready for beta and a huge milestone. And during that year, he had been begging and pleading for a chance to talk to users, and he kept hearing sure, sure, and nothing happened. And I feel like this is something that is pretty common. And I left this news at the end so we could actually discuss a little bit about that. What do you guys think?
This is common, and I hear this from designers. What I don't understand is why they're not doing that research themselves.
You're saying like, hey, you should just go on your own, be a maverick, and just do the research.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that if you work at an organization that doesn't buy into you going and doing that, then I would probably leave that organization. But I've never worked anywhere where if I took this on, they were like, no, you can't do that.
So can I tell a little story? I think it's relevant. I used to work for a startup called Automatic, and as part of that, we worked on like a physical product, like a car adapter, and we were designing the package for this thing, and we didn't really know how to do it, and it was a startup, so we didn't really have the funding to hire more than 4 people, and so we just didn't have a researcher. So what we ended up doing is we modeled the packaging of the adapter with the exact size as the square car reader adapter. And then we went to an Apple store, we got a square car reader package, and we just pasted our package on top of that one and then put it in the shelf. And then we just kind of like sat by the corner of the Apple store, like creepily waiting to see if anybody would pick it up. And as soon as anybody picked it up, we just kind of like went to them and asked them a bunch of questions and why they did it and whatnot. And it worked.
That is an awesome story. That is an awesome story.
I love that.
You got to respond to this guy in Designer News and tell him that story.
Man, we talked to a bunch of people. We learned a lot. We got kicked out of the Apple store after like 20 times. But it was, it was kind of like our own way of getting research, even though we didn't have like a researcher in the company.
Yes, that's how you do it.
I think scrappy research is good. I mean, I as a UX researcher, like I will always advocate, like eventually when they can, they should get a full-time researcher who can like just constantly be thinking about research and not conflicted or with the design in the process. But that said, like, I mean, I feel his pain, but it also seems like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, clearly that organization's like going about it the wrong way if they refuse to do it, or if they're just like doing like, oh, we just talk to people and it's fine, you're good. But yeah, I think Scrappy and just getting clever and just him going out and talking to people or getting some feedback or launching a Facebook like even an informal Facebook poll survey thing or Instagram poll. You know what I mean? Like there's so many ways to get even a modicum of feedback that could potentially be helpful. Than just saying like, oh, if we don't have a formal research study or research like program, then we can't get any feedback from, users. But yeah, I could also understand how frustrating that could be though, if he's put in a lot of effort trying to get that and isn't getting the results.
I think, I mean, I have to say that I've been in companies where I felt that apathy, where I felt that, or at least that, the feeling that they say, yes, we should do it, but nobody actually does it. And I don't know if there's some myths behind research where it's like probably the cost, or there's no time to do that. We just have to move fast, and it's too costly, and there's no probably the effort. We don't have the right people. So I don't know. Like, and it's like they say, no, we should do it, but it's not right now. So how do you deal with that kind of company? So, and I understand that, yeah, just do it, but you don't want to just do it and then come with results and then still get that same kind of apathy,
I don't think you would. I mean, I hear that. I definitely have seen that apathy at multiple companies that I've been at, but my solution has been to own it myself and drive it myself. And I guess I've never done that and had people be like, we'd prefer not to hear those insights. We don't care what those people think, I mean, if you're honestly in that situation, I would definitely think about getting a new job. But if what I find more often is that no one wants to own it. And so when I hear a designer who says, I really care about research, I want to be doing that, but no one else wants to do it at my organization, you don't care about research if you're not taking that on in any way.
Something else you can do too is do like internal research, like and that's why prototyping is so helpful. If you have an idea for something, you can ask people around your company and get their buy-in, and I think that makes them invested in the process of like iterating quickly on an idea. And from there to bring in external folks, I think might be a shorter leap to make.
Yeah, just even adding to that, there's so many like quick and dirty ways. And I feel like for any, like, this is like kind of stepping back from like this designer specifically. Oh no, did we lose Pablo?
He's bored. He went to go do some research.
He's just like, bye. Okay, should we keep going?
Yeah, keep going. Let's do it.
Yeah. It was just yeah, I think that to counter the myth that research is expensive and costly. Yes, there are forms of research that can be very costly and forms of research that can take a lot of time, but there's a lot of methods that can be done that are very quick and very like you can get even a little bit of an answer or even a little bit of information by just, like you said, you went to the Apple store and talked to people. Like I'm so in awe with that. Like just because it's ingenious, and yeah, it took a little bit of planning, but I'm sure you got a lot from even just talking to those first few people. And then after a while, you probably just started seeing patterns. The more people you talk to, you probably still got the general patterns that you got from the first few, or from even a small subset of it. And I think that's the whole point, that you can get information by even talking to a few people, or even just doing something super quick, even explaining something to someone in theory in an elevator and just being like, what are your first questions? What are your thoughts? Like that's still research. That's still a form of research. And I think people don't realize that. They think if I'm not spending thousands of dollars recruiting people into focus groups or something, then I'm not doing research. And I think that's crazy.
Yeah. Pablo, you missed all these gems while you were gone.
I know. I'm sorry. I had some really first world problem.
Good.
But I have the newest. This is going to be sounding like I'm bragging, but I have the newer MacBook, and the sound card has been horrible. Apple does
Oh,
not.
poor Pablo.
Poor
Oh.
Pablo with his new MacBook that sometimes the sound doesn't work. Oh my God. Poor Pablo. See, I should have just stayed quiet. Yeah. So
No judgment. I refuse to get the new one because they turned off the lit up logo, which I thought was so silly. Why? It was such a beautiful thing. Anyway.
I know. It's they needed some they need some research there.
Gabriel, have you written your story up, that story about Automatic up anywhere? Because that is a gem.
I don't think I have it now.
Yeah.
It's just a late night exclusive.
Nice.
Yeah. What's
if
so
you
great
do,
about that?
I would just
No,
like
go ahead.
take it, maybe just mention generic store. That way people don't just go start attacking Apple stores. But you know what I mean? Like with research. But I think that, God, that's so brilliant.
We'd be in a great place if everyone went to the Apple store and started doing research. What I think is so cool about that is that not only are you doing research and learning, but you're actually validating that people will buy that product. Like you're even further de-risking that product even more than you might have had you brought people into the office. So
and it's
that's really
your target audience theoretically, right? It's the people who would go to an Apple store.
Right.
And like check out products.
Hey team, we have some questions from the audience.
Yeah.
The audience, and here Edgar Chaparros. Hey Edgar.
Hola. Hello everyone.
Hello.
Over here in the middle, man.
So I'm going to talk to you guys with my epic shirt and my epic hat. So anyways, we have some questions. One of the questions we have is from Michelle Chang, and she wants to know how we present qualitative research findings to developers. In this case, the developers are stakeholders to bring actionable changes to the product.
What's the case where the developers are not stakeholders? Do you know what she means by that?
I'm assuming I don't, but I'm assuming
that they're the users of the product,
or that they are the decision makers for the company.
Oh yes, the founders. Yeah, I mean, I usually try to do workshops with people on my team who have the stake in the research, and like Melissa said, we'll play back audio reels or video reels of the research, and then have them look through the notes that I've taken, and have them pull out what they thought was interesting, and then we'll talk about that stuff together. That usually goes pretty well and is helpful, and helps explain where I go with the design decisions after that.
So
yeah, I would second everything you just said.
Is there any more questions?
Yeah. So one of them is, whenever there is research, there are findings and there are interviews. How do you make interviews more fun for people, and how do you make them not have biases?
So I guess just referring back to what I was talking about earlier, like I try to not make it an interview. Like very rarely, like when I have a research session, am I just sitting there just being like, I'm going to ask you questions for an hour, you know, like it's more like, hey, like first I always do like an icebreaker at the beginning. Icebreaker is such a kitschy term, but you know, I always get them like talking about like how to, like, you know, I'm researching YouTube. So at that point, I'm just asking like, how do you use YouTube? Like, are you on the go? Are you at home? Are you on your phone? Are you on your computer? And just get them talking, like what kind of videos do you like? Do you have any favorite channels? And just like getting them comfortable talking, because a lot of people, even if they, obviously I think people kind of self-select into doing research studies because you have to talk to people. But even then it still takes a little while to get them to warm up to you because you're a stranger. So just getting them comfortable talking about something that, again, there's no wrong answer. It's just me like trying to get to know them. And then if someone's really quiet, I'll always share my own stuff. Like, hey, I like, you know, lessons from the screenplay. Like I like movie YouTube channels and stuff, and just talk about like just things to get them comfortable. And then I'll like do whatever the activity is, you know, or whatever the research is. Whether it be, hey, we're gonna like draw some ideas today of like what you're, you know, what you would do if you wanted to find a video on YouTube or something, and just kind of like go over roundabout ways of like finding the answers to the questions you want to do. Very rarely is it just sitting down and talking interview style for an hour. I feel like that would be like an interrogation, and no one would have fun with that. And plus you probably wouldn't learn that much. So
yeah, it's just about talking to people. Steve Portugal had a great quote that was like, if all you do is build a rapport with the person that you're interviewing, like you're golden.
Mm, that's
I don't know if we addressed the bias question. On the bias side, I would say again that I would involve other teammates and ideally you rotate through who's the facilitator.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very nice. Another question. So you guys may have answered this, but we had a temporary block, so we weren't able to hear you guys. So I'm gonna ask anyways. So there's a lot of people out there who work for startups and have zero experience with research. I know when I first started designing, like in UX in that world, I had no idea what research was, and it took me a while to like actually figure out what I can do. But what advice do you have for people who are on small teams who don't even know where to start?
There's a lot of really great books out there. Like we mentioned Don Norman earlier, and I think we're gonna talk about it more, but he has this book called Design of Everyday Things, which I think is just like a really interesting like intro to the whole concept of like, research involved with the design process. And like, it used to be called The Psychology of Everyday Things, just to like put that out there. I think he saw the design work better, so he changed the title. So just like kind of like taking a more of a broad step back and just realizing like it is at the end of the day, like you're dealing with humans who have like psychological like limitations, just like, like I mentioned earlier, like working memory and stuff. So things like that, just getting some like more foundational understanding, I think that will help with the design process, even if you can't sit down and do the like in-depth research yourself. There's also this one called Don't Make Me Think by Steve Krug. I love that book. It's intentionally written as like an intro level. Like he has a disclaimer at the beginning. He's like, this is not for people who do research. Like this is really, really like simplistic thoughts, but it's meant for people who have never done research before or aren't familiar with the concepts, and just like go read through it. And it's a little bit outdated in a way because he wrote it back in the mid 90s when it was all website based, but he updated it recently and added mobile aspects and stuff. But I think the underlying concepts are still the same, which is like there are certain patterns you can put in that people will just understand better than others. And, just kind of keep those things in mind as you're walking there. So yeah, I think there's a lot of literature out there. There's a lot of courses you could do online, like just like to, do some self-learning to try to learn a little bit more about the research process. And I think it will just make you a better designer, even if you can't have a full-time researcher on board.
I agree.
Yeah. I want to add one book to that, Running Lean by Ash Moria. That's a great book for startup founders and designers.
Running Lean by
Running
Ash.
Lean.
Yep, there we go. There's another book, Rocket Surgery Made Easy.
Yes. There's so many great ones.
Yep. So, and they're all pretty easy reads. Like you can definitely smash them out in a weekend. The Design of Everyday Things, I think you guys should all read. It will literally make you look at the world differently. And in return, you'll start thinking about everything that you do in a different way, which really makes you a better designer. So that's just my little humble opinion. But
It's true, Edgar. Norman doors. Did you just say that, Pablo?
The same guy. Hold on. So this guy actually wrote an article. You want to tell us about that article, Gabriel? He spoke about research, actually.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning because Don Norman is who he is, and he's inspired so many designers and researchers to have a user-centered process, right, where user needs inform what we do. And in this essay, it seems like he had a bit of a change of heart, and he says that user needs don't necessarily lead to innovation, and that innovation is sometimes and he mentioned some key examples there, but he says that innovation can come from a technological insight rather than the user insight. And he argues that things like the telephone or the car and some of the biggest innovations that in the past few decades have come from a bunch of people that discover a technology and then kind of retrofit a problem that technology can solve, which many designers see that as like the wrong way of doing things. Everything should start from a user problem and a user need, and then technology and solutions should follow. So I thought it was really interesting that it wasn't just anybody that had this idea, but Don Norman comes out and argues for basically the opposite of what he wrote. So I'm really curious to see what you guys think.
You can start, Melissa.
Yeah, So I thought it was a well like thought out argument. He makes a solid point. You know, a lot of technology came out, and then we came up with fittings for it. I don't think that it means that user research is useless, though. I think that back to the whole point we were saying before. Yeah, if you're inventing something that's completely brand new, you're not going to walk up to people and be like, how are you using this, or how would you use this, because they don't have any preconceived notions of how they would use something that doesn't exist. You know, but I think you can still like kind of like build in that expectation of how people interact with things that already exist, or how they already think about things, and use that to inform your new product and make it more successful right from the very beginning, just because, you know, humans are still humans using it. So having that foundation of research will still help you make your product that much better. I just thought it was, I don't know, it just felt very like dismissive of research in a way that I thought was just, I don't know, just almost overly simplistic and a little disappointing when I was just like, wow, so you're just, it like, I think there's a line where he was like, let's just let the technologists do what they can do, and then the research can help later. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like you're still building it off of what research has already done, though. So it's almost like at this point, like a chicken and egg thing, you know, like you still are benefiting from past research, whether you are, claim it or not, you know.
To your point, Melissa, about like elevator conversations, like when Elon Musk was starting SpaceX, he joined the Mars, I think it's the Mars Society, and like spent a lot of time with that group, talking with all of those people about what was going on there. That's all a form of research. So even though he had this grandiose idea, he wasn't like sitting at Starbucks being like, would you like to go to space? But he was talking with people and getting a sense for the existing market for that thing and strengthening his idea along the way. One of my colleagues at NEO, the lean startup consultancy, Ian McFarland, he used to say, it turns out you learn things when you find out people want faster horses.
Yeah, that's a great word. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's people kind of bring up that metaphor all the time, which kind of alludes to the idea that customers or users don't know what they want, right? Because if you would ask them how they, like, you know, back in the day before cars were a thing, if you ask them how to get between point A to point B faster, they would have told you, we want a faster horse. And that would have never led to the invention of the car, right? So I think that's just part of the kind of like zeitgeist of design and product development, and it's kind of like a blow to research, right? It tells you that the users won't give you the answers that won't necessarily lead to the innovation or the product idea that will be successful. I'm sure you guys have heard this before. Do you have like a one-liner that a rebuttal to that?
Yeah, Ian's line. It turns out you learn things when you find out people want faster horses.
I don't heard that response, and that's so brilliant.
Yeah, because you hear, okay, I want a faster horse, and as a designer, as a creator, you think, what are all the ways I could make a faster horse? They want to get somewhere faster. How could I do that? Like, that's your job as a designer, to come up with that solution.
And then as a researcher, you're finding out that, okay, people want to get somewhere faster, right? Like, that's the underlying message. Like, yes, they want a faster horse is how they're trying to create that solution. But the actual takeaway is we want to get quick, like horses aren't fast enough, or we would like to get there faster. So then you could take that finding back to your team and be like, okay, so how could we find, or what are ways we could do to improve, make people get places faster? Maybe not even using horses, but, you know, using other technologies or something.
Like teleportation.
Yeah, exactly. It's all 2020 looking back, but it's still the actual takeaway is, you know.
But it happens all the time, right? People will submit feature requests. They'll say, I want to be able to do this with your product. And you have to back that out into, well, what are you really trying to solve?
Yeah.
And then solve it in the right way.
Lex, I love how, like, from when we started and now, like, the background is totally different. Now it's night. We started and it was still day. There was still sunlight.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so we are almost at the end. I would love to know if let's just do a debrief, and before we say goodbye. I don't know if you have probably something that you would love to share with other people, like a gem. You're like, hey, this is something that, I don't know, a book or a tool that you're using, or an artist, or someone that you're following, and you're just like, everybody should know about this, and a little gem that you want to share with someone else. What about you, Lex? You have something?
Yeah. I went to this exhibit today at the Marciano Art Foundation, which is a museum I had never been to. And I saw this gigantic installation work called Reality Projector by an artist who I can't really pronounce his name, but it was like Oliver Alessian. And I tweeted about it. So if you look at my timeline, you'll see it. But he basically used this gigantic old Masonic lodge theater to project light and sound, and it's fascinating and beautiful.
So, and this is just in LA, or is it like going to be in
It
different
is.
places?
I don't know. It's a site. He called it a site responsive work, so it's sort of designed for that space. But he does a lot of work, so I'm sure he has stuff all over the world.
What are you, Melissa? Do you have something for us?
I guess this is kind of a little shameless plug, but I just got added to the speaker series for World Usability Day in November in Switzerland. And I just think the lineup sounds awesome. It's just talking about things. They have researchers, designers, product managers all across different parts of the UX experience. And the whole the theme of it this year is make it easy, or making life easy. And one of the subtracks is all about like dark pattern. There's a whole emerging concept now of like digital wellness, and all these products are trying to make people feel, like their time is being used well and wisely, and letting people have more control about how much time they're devoting to these products. But there's also like this other side of like, why is this even necessary, and have we built in addictive behaviors and stuff? And I think it will be really interesting to hear, what the panels and what the different talk speakers have to say. So check it out. I think they have a very robust website, and they have talks online from previous ones. But just back to the whole point of like, even if you don't have a dedicated research team, you can still do research and find out what people are doing. Conferences and events like World Usability Day or other events are really great resources. So check it out.
Could you repeat the name of the of this?
Yeah, it's World Usability Day. If you just Google it, it's in November in Switzerland. So if people want to attend in person, they can. But there's also like previous years like footage online and stuff. And so,
and you're going to be speaking there?
Yes, I'll be there.
Ooh, there you go. What about you, Gabriel? What do you have for us?
I have nothing to do with this product or group whatsoever, but there's a Facebook group called Cool Dog Group that is basically just 30,000 members of the group sharing videos and photos of their dogs. So if you're tired of reading racist rants from your uncles or baby photos on Facebook, you can follow this group, Cool Dog Group, and every other post on Facebook will be a video or a photo of a dog, and it's amazing.
That's oh my god, I love that.
Love it.
Melissa's writing it down.
I'm literally writing it
down. Okay, so time to say goodbye. Thank you so much for being here. It was really interesting. I think I'll learn a lot. Hopefully, the people that were watching live also learn a lot. This is going to be recorded, so it's going to be available later on the YouTube channels for other people to see it. Again, I know it's Sunday and it's a little bit late, so not a lot of people get to see it live, but it's going to be there. And I would love to just like each one of you tell us, where can we know more about you? Where is it? Instagram or Twitter, a portfolio, website? I don't know. What about you, Gabriel?
Yeah, anywhere online. My full name is Gabriel Valdivia. You can find me on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, anywhere under that name.
What are you, Lex? On the Twitters?
Yep, Twitter. I'm all about Twitter. So I'm Calexity, if you can even spell that. CALEXITY.
Great. What are you, Melissa?
Yeah, I'm everywhere online as Mab Smith, MAB Smith. I mainly use Twitter right now, but I'm actually in Zurich right now for a work rotation, and so it's 5 a.m. here, by the way, so that's pretty great. Yeah, so I just started using Instagram a lot more to just share some of the travels and world stuff. But yeah, Twitter is amazing.
Your handle? What was your handle?
Yeah, Mabs, M-A-B Smith, Mab Smith.
Okay.
Yay.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Everybody that was here watching everything. Again, thank you so much. And thank you to Edgar. Edgar.
Yeah.
Edgar
Yay,
is
thank
here.
you.
He was on the chat. He was answering questions. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah. Hold on, real quick. Another epic plug. There's a program called Look Back, and it syncs with InVision. So a lot of you talk about like how can I do research at a pretty lean level. This allows you to do remote research with users and actually record everything that they do inside of your prototype. So there's another gem. Look Back, and you can
Ooh.
link that to InVision.
Yeah.
Wow. What a
Shout out for
convenient,
InVision.
great design
Perfect.
tool. Wow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.